You could introduce yourself and your colleague and then make whatever presentation you'd like to make.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Buck Dozier, Executive Director of State Fairgrounds, and with me is Laura Faust. This is her first mayor budget hearing, so be kind.
Congratulations.
We got Laura over from HCA, and she's doing a tremendous job, and we're delighted to have her. Just a few comments, if I might, Mr. Mayor, as we get started this afternoon. Just to say that the fairgrounds is kind of leveled off in terms of its attendance, and actually we've shown an increase in a number of our major shows and even in the flea market as we have progressed through these times. Also, our flea market this year is showing about a 5% increase. Weather often determines our attendance at that, but thus far we're doing quite well. In the racing area, the last 2 years we've had Mr. Formosa and his staff to work with. That has been an amiable situation. He has 2 more races this year, which gives us 2 more chances to race. He has 10 weekends that he can use any way he wishes to use. At this time, there's 8 races, which we had last year, and 2 special events, which he's working with now, which gives us additional revenues for sure. Our relationship with our neighborhood groups is, I think, exceptional. We meet with them once a month. Mr. Formosa and racing, where that tends to be the venue that causes the most heartburn in the neighborhood, the noise. He's meeting with them on a regular basis, and for that we're very grateful that the neighborhood groups are working well with our promoters on a number of things. We increased about a year ago our parking revenues. We start charging for parking $5, which is still the cheapest in town.
It's a bargain.
It is, and I think only the zoo matches that. But I'll tell you, it has been a really a good thing for the revenues for the fairgrounds, and something that should have been done a long time ago, and I think it was the right thing to do at the time. Just to compliment the staff, 17 of us, and they do a marvelous job under a great deal of stress sometimes out there to get a show packed up and out and one coming in. And they do a marvelous job on that. One thing that I'm excited about is that our Ovations contract, food contract with Ovations, is ending, and we'll be putting an RFP out next week. I believe it's coming out next week to determine a new food vendor. For that, I'm very grateful. This has not been the best situation, and I think the revenues for the fairgrounds with the proper relationship with proper pricing and quality food can enhance our revenues considerably out there, and we're looking forward to that. I guess the major thing going on at the fairgrounds is the master plan, which the Metro Council authorized. That master plan now has been finished. It has been given to the council. I have no idea what they're going to do with it at this point. They have not indicated that. I do know they're coming out, some of them are coming out in about 2 weeks to look at the place and to see the condition of it and so forth. I think the greatest challenge we have right now out there is, as I say to people sometimes, the greatest thing about the fairgrounds is 107 years old. The worst thing about it is 107 years old. And the buildings and our heating and air conditioning and grounds are in great need of repairs and so forth. So that's probably our greatest challenge at this point that we have on those historic acres out there.
Okay. Well, there are several things that occur on the fairgrounds. There's the fair, and there's the racing, and then there's the flea market, and then there's the exhibit rooms and meeting areas that you have. And could you just go down how each of those are doing in terms of revenue? Or
the state, let's start with the state fair. That's been somewhat controversial in terms of the board's decision on taking, there were different offers made. Very difficult situation the board was put in because of the staff from the Tennessee Fair Association, which is the state of Tennessee, has given that 501c3 the right to operate the Tennessee State Fair. They now lease the property from us. We don't run the fair any longer. And we had a group from Memphis who was offering more money, but there were plus and minuses. The Tennessee Fair Association was a little cheaper, but they had some strengths that the other group did not have. We negotiated this year with that nonprofit to get their contribution up to a greater degree than it was last year. Last year was about $50,000. It's going to be roughly $120,000 round figures this year, which will be up. So they're working to make the Tennessee State Fair viable again. Their attendance was up last year about 10%, and that's what they're forecasting again this year. Again, they only lease the property from Metro. We don't run it anymore.
Right. So the cost of actually putting the fair on is borne by them, and you would have incidental costs related to maintaining the property.
Well, yes, we do. You're exactly right. We do supplement them in the sense that that they use some of our equipment and they use our buildings and so forth. We're not charging them exactly what we normally charge somebody for a building, but that's what we're negotiating with them. And again, we were able to negotiate that up this year, which I think is a plus, and we'll continue to do that. Racing has stabilized with Mr. Formosa. He generally had an average last year, I would say, of around 3,000, 3,500 average. He would have anywhere from 6,000 on a couple of races, the big races. He has negotiated this year with some racing teams that are, I'd say, better racers or more high quality in the racing community. He's bringing those in. His opening race this year will have that series, one of those series in here. And as far as working, we had some problems with some racing promoters out there who didn't finish paying us off, and we had to go after them and so forth. We have not had that problem with Mr. Formosa, and he's doing a good job advertising and doing some other things that I think has stabilized racing. The future of racing is still up in the air in terms of whether or not over the long haul they can sustain themselves in revenues to keep it going. And in terms of the flea market is by Tennessee Magazine is considered the #1 flea market in Tennessee. As you know, a couple of years ago we were ranked 7th in the nation in terms of the size of our flea market. I think that's due to marvelous staff who works with people very well. I think the stabilization of things, and things have quieted down quite a bit. I think that's helped the vendors to come back to us. I think the quality of the merchandise is good, and people in Nashville like it. They like the flea market. They come out. In April and May, we'll have huge crowds.
You would expect, I was looking at the figures in the book, would you expect, because we're going into the spring, for April, May, and June, that you'll hit last year's attendance figures for the flea market? Absolutely, we do. And that weather does affect us. It affected us this weekend. We had 900 and some odd booths, 1,300 booths, and we had just short of 600 vendors. That's a little down from last March, but again, the weather was not very good this weekend. But overall, we're sustaining ourselves with the flea market. It's doing very well, and I think there's some things we want to do with the flea market. I think with what I call the experience of coming to the flea market, there's always people, musical acts and so forth, who would like to come and for free to stand on a corner and sing or play or whatever. I think food is a huge item at the flea market that can be enhanced too, that can increase our revenues. But the flea market is going quite well. Okay. Corporate sales is where we got hurt as in the last few years because of the uncertainty. However, corporate sales tends to be, we're getting more requests. The only problem we have in honoring some of the requests is the type of buildings we have. The
we don't have buildings that can house horse shows and dog shows. We have a dog show, but some of the larger different breeds of animals and so forth, we're not able to have.
Small dog show.
Small dog shows, that's right. And that's an area that, with the right facilities, could really put, I think, that 117 acres, as far as revenues, it would put us going toward the black, I think, in a huge area. It has, we're not able to market, though. I guess if I had one wish right now, is I had someone out there knocking on doors and marketing. At the same time, we need to determine what the future of the fairgrounds is, because when you knock on those doors, they're going to want to know you're going to be there and so forth. So, but marketing is a huge area that the business model for the fairgrounds has not been enhanced by not having someone marketing the potential out there.
Mm-hmm. Right, and then for your budget requests for the coming year, what's the total on that?
The total that we're requesting on expenses?
Yes.
$3,162,000. And we're asking for a supplement of $791,000, which includes the addition of a marketing person. We project our revenues for next year to be close to $2.5 million, but that does not include if we would have a marketing person added on board, if there's any possibility that we'd be able to get them up to speed enough to increase our revenues in that area.
All right, so you're requesting $3,700,000 for improvements, is that?
I'm requesting $3.1 million total in expenses.
3.1.
But we will be short in terms of we don't have any more fund balance to use, so we will need a
We'll
subsidy
finish
of about
this year with our fund balance.
All right, so you anticipate you're 3.1 and you're anticipating 2.5 in revenue.
Mm-hmm.
So there'll be the shortage.
Only the gap.
And then
Yeah, that was actually one of the questions I was going to ask is, in the past, when expenses have exceeded revenues, you've been able to tap into those reserves to offset that gap. Is that true?
That is correct.
That's correct.
And then we just filed a supplemental budget request last week that had some additional monies in there to sort of true up this budget year that would appropriate some of the money from your existing reserves, right?
That will pretty much finish out our existing reserves.
That will
Right.
take our reserves.
So is this the first time then that the fair board would be asking from an appropriation from the general fund to offset that loss?
That is correct. That is correct.
I think there actually was a request last year.
Yeah, if you consider that request,
But
this would be the
it
second
was
one.
not
But
done.
But it wasn't done.
yeah, we didn't do it. We didn't do it last year.
So this is all hypothetical.
Yep.
So what happens if we were to say your expenses got to meet your revenue? What happens?
Well, I think this is the difficult part of it. I think that the uncertainty of the situation out there keeps us from
Right. That's a conversation we've had for
selling, and going out and doing the things that we need to do to increase. We don't have a spending problem. We have a revenue problem. It's being able to offer or to get promoters and vendors to come out there. Mm-hmm. And of course, we're fighting there the aging facility and the uncertainty that has whether they really want to come at this point. I do believe that when everything settles down, that it's viable to make a profit out there. I really do.
But for now, you have the council requested plan that's been done, and then what action they take on that, or whether there's requests for further information. And then it would be unlikely, I think it's fair to say, that would be resolved before April 30th, right, when we do the budget.
I don't think the council will tackle that, and who knows? My feeling is they'll certainly get through the budget process before they really sit down to tackle that issue, and where they tackle it in the second half of the year or not, who knows? But I don't think they're going to tackle it before budget time. this year's budget.
Well, Greg, I mean, along the line of the questions on the budget, I mean, there's also the issue of revenue growth. And, you know, we did the Maximus study a year or so ago, and you raised some of the flea market rates, I think, and you raised some of the things. I mean, I guess the question I've got is, before you ask the taxpayers for money, have you thought about raising revenues to get more revenue to not then become a subsidy need?
Yes, we have, and next Tuesday when the board meets, that is the discussion that the board will be having about raising our rates again. Here is some thoughts along those lines and some of the difficulties with it. I had Laura project out, if we did a 5% increase in our what we charge our promoters and vendors, it would only be about $24,000, or $25,000 rounded off, which is significant, but insignificant in terms that we believe that, again, because of the uncertainty and the aging of our buildings, and we lost a building out there. We lost the annex, which was a connection between two buildings, which now we have up a temporary tent situation, but it's adequate and it's safe. And so we lost in being able to offer our promoters who were using that space for their booths where they receive their income from. So there's some things going against us in terms of being able to offer what we need to, and they always throw those things back in our face. You're going to increase my rates. At the same time, you're having problems with buildings and air conditioning and so forth. The board is going to consider all this. They'll be considering all this.
But you're just talking about rates for the exposition center, exactly.
Well, flea market as well, and that's something we do consider raising flea market rates a little differently than we do promoters on the other events. But the whole the issue of rate increase will be discussed with our board next Tuesday.
Okay. And then you'll let us know what happens.
I might add too, one of the things that when I got out there, they didn't raise rates for years, and when they did raise rates, it wasn't based upon a need. It was based upon, because they had money flowing. They had all this money in reserves, and so somebody said, well, let's raise them 3%, but it wasn't based upon some analytical study of what rate increases should be. Now that we had the Maximus study, who has given us a plan, we couldn't implement that plan immediately because we would run off everybody there. We were so far behind, so we're having to catch up incrementally.
Are aggregate revenues off sort of those four functions the mayor outlined earlier, have they dramatically gone down over the last decade, 5 to 10 years? Do you know?
In general, they have gone down. We've lost so many people. We've lost, around $208,000 worth of business when it was announced that we were closing the fairgrounds. Right. And we have not recouped a lot of that business yet because they signed long-term contracts at the other places they were at.
So that $280,000 in lost revenue is just the exhibition lease, or is it in aggregate, is it across the fair, the racing, the exhibition, the flea market?
That's primarily just the corporate piece of it. The flea market piece of it, we've been able to retain most of that business.
We'll back up on that.
Can you? Yeah, it sounds like the flea market's doing great. Mm-hmm. So can you get me some information on sort of breaking down racing, the exhibition lease rental space, the flea market, and the fair, and sort of give me some revenue history on that? Mm-hmm.
Be glad to, and what you bring up we have four business models out there, really.
And then the parking is sort of another layer of that. Yeah. But I'm sort of interested in the revenue history, and how it's done.
Yeah.
How do you book the food and beverage revenue? Does that go to the individual vendors, or how does that get booked?
It comes directly from Ovations, and I book it either as a pass-through from if we use a sub for Ovations, or it comes directly from Ovations. So I only use 2 account lines to book that now. I don't book it to a specific event. I book it just directly as concessions revenue.
And do you show any increase in that because of the new contract?
I have not built in any increase because of the new contract, because we have no idea what the percentages will be for that new contract. We are putting a stipulation in that new contract that we don't want any subs used, so that may impact what our percentages are compared to what we collect already now.
It's been very loose the way they operate out there, and I can assure you in the future that isn't going to happen.
One of the module requests or the additional request is back to this idea of hiring someone to market the corporate sales. And you mentioned this $280,000 of lost revenue, and there's like 91 grand being asked for here. If we spend 91 grand to build some additional marketing for the exhibition space, how much of that 280 you think you can recoup?
All of it, plus, and I don't mean that
Even in spite of, well, understand from where I sit, I hear the questions about uncertainty and facilities, and I just want to,
I want to qualify. I do think it would be a plus, but there's that one other caveat, and that's the uncertainty. It would be hard for that person to go out and sell. They want 1 year, 3 year, 5 year contracts sometimes as they book for the future. They want some stability in their business and where they're going to be and so forth. So without that, with armed in their holster, it's going to be very difficult for them to sell some of these things. But without a doubt, I believe, and I think the other thing too, and I'll go back to it, is the aging of our facilities. We've got to be able to offer people something. We've got to do something with our buildings. We've got to paint and do some heating and air conditioning things.
So a lot of the issues related to booking an event 5 years out would be subject to what the council decides to do with the master plan, or whether or not they decide to do anything there, right?
That is correct. And they have, in the master plan, there are about 6 or 7 options they have. They may choose none of them.
Sure.
But yes, that's what they choose to do is going to end up what we do.
Understood.
Okay, Rich? All right, well, thank you, and thanks for your hard work, and thanks for the presentation.
Thank you.
Good to see you. You're welcome, yeah.
Thank you.